Welcome to another edition of the GM Files. Jim Buquette alongside Bobby Evans. Today, we are joined by Boston Red Sox reliever Adam Ottavino. That one didn't flow off my tongue quite as well there, Adam. Obviously, you got traded here this winter. I'm curious. Thanks for your time. Wanted to start maybe there. The transition is always interesting. We've been on the trading aspect. We trade players. We've never experienced what you're going through, learning new guys, going to a new team. Tell us a little bit about how that's gone so far.
Yeah, it's been fine. We got our heads wrapped around it last few weeks and started figuring out, where to live and all that and how we're going to make it work with the family. But, 2 days into camp so far, everything's been fine. I mean, it's a little different. I didn't really know anybody on this team, but, so far so good.
Well, it's great to know you're in spring training and down in Fort Myers. It must be a relief after a long winter and a lot of discussions of delays and potential back and forth, and to see everybody starting to roll in must be a good feeling. How does it feel to put on the uniform in Boston?
Feels good. Definitely, I think anytime you put on a new jersey, it feels a little strange at first. You kind of get accustomed to the one you were wearing. But I think, it's an honor to be on this team, and I feel good about it. And, it's just great to have spring training and hopefully 162 ahead of us. You're right. There's been a lot of uncertainty for the last, year plus, but I feel like, it feels sort of normal to be here this time and getting ready for the whole deal.
I'm curious because you grew up in New York. We've talked to you before about this. I have. You grew up in Park Slope, and it was kind of Yankees fan. And now you go to the team. You went to college right down the street in Northeastern, so you're obviously familiar with Boston. The Red Sox and you guys in college, right? You guys probably played against them, so there couldn't have been, at least from that aspect of it, there's familiarity, but. We don't see a lot of trades usually Yankees to Boston. I think the last one we saw was 2014. So that aspect had to have been a little odd for you too. But I'm kind of curious on all of that I mentioned.
Yeah. I've never had an aversion to Boston. I think, once I was in school there, I got a lot more perspective on, what the Red Sox are all about, what the fandom in New England is all about, what that's like. And, really grew to appreciate that. When I was a free agent, I was very interested in going potentially to Boston at that point. So, my wife went to grad school at Harvard, and, I went to school at Northeastern. So it's always been a good place for us. I think familiarity wise, that's definitely a bonus. It's not too far from where we live. They can drive there. So there's some things about it that are really, really nice. But, it wasn't on my radar for the trade. If I'm being honest, I felt like I might get traded there, but just you don't think Yankees are going to trade with the Red Sox. So when Cash told me that, I was definitely shocked about that part of it.
Well, your name forever will be on that short list of trades that started with Babe Ruth. So it's a pretty good list, and it's very short. So it's a pretty good honor right there. So
yeah, I joke probably be involved in some trivia down the line.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, for sure. I think.
Yeah. Well,
ahead,
I was just gonna say, what are you most looking forward to about playing in Boston? I mean,
he was freezing up on that one, but I think he was more talking about the Red Sox. What do you look forward to?
Yeah, I got the gist of it. So, I think for me, I'm excited for a number of reasons. I think number one, maybe I'll get myself in a little better situation role-wise on this team. Maybe opportunity to, pitch whole innings and face left-handers and stuff that I haven't done really since I was with Colorado, and maybe a little bit at the beginning with the Yankees. So I'm excited to get back to a job like that, hopefully I can prove myself in that way again and take another step forward in my career. Also, sticking around the AL East, it's good for me. I feel like, I always want to play big time baseball. I want to challenge myself on a high stage. So Red Sox are certainly that, excited for the energy in the ballpark if and when the fans can come in this year, and being a part, always love playing at Fenway as a visitor. even in college when we got to play there a little bit. So it's a special place for me. I'm excited for all those reasons. And also, I think that as a team, a lot of people are writing us off. So it's exciting sometimes to be on that end of it too. Surprise some people and make a run at something that maybe people aren't expecting.
I'm curious about your role, because you've been, over the last few years, you've been dominant in that role, right? Back end. And like you said, it changed a little bit there with the Yankees. What was your sense of why? I know it's always been a deep bullpen there, but what was your overall feeling the way that all went down?
So, going into it, like when I signed there, I kind of knew that I was going to be used heavily versus righties. They told me that I would pitch against everybody, but obviously they would try to set up my situation as best as they could to face the righties. And mostly it was communicated that it wasn't really, that they didn't trust me versus lefties. It was more that, most of our pitchers were really dominant against lefties at the time. Betances, Chad Green, Britton, and Chapman. And Tommy Kahnle too. So those guys are all exceptional versus lefties. So, I understood it from that perspective, but obviously internally, like I wanted to prove myself to do it all. So when I first got there, I was kind of given that chance out the gate. They were pitching me kind of 7th, 8th inning. And then, Britton was having a hard time doing the partial inning thing. So as a group, we kind of decided, it'd be better just to give him the 8th. And that's what the team went forward and did. And then I kind of flip-flopped with Kahnle that whole year in 19. When it went amazing, he was unbelievable in his role. I was doing good in my role, and we kind of had a dream regular season there. I thought I was okay with it. It was last year when things started to change a little bit. Out of the gate in spring, I noticed that I wasn't pitching as many full innings. I was getting taken out in situations I wasn't used to getting taken out in. And ultimately, it was a short year, but I just didn't really get any reps last year against any lefties. So, come playoff time, I knew it was going to be hard with the way that, we're playing Tampa. They're very platoon oriented. I knew it was going to be tough for them to put me in the ball game when they were always going to counter with a lefty. And it seemed like all of a sudden they didn't want that, like Yankees didn't want that matchup anymore. So that bothered me and it frustrated me, but ultimately it motivated me, and I'm glad I'll get a better opportunity this year to face those guys.
Yeah, I mean, your stuff is, and I may cut out, I don't know. So if I do, just apologize. But I mean, your stuff is so tough. I mean, I can't imagine being comfortable in the box with you on the mound, whether you're a righty or a lefty. I mean, the lefty, the ball's cutting into you. The righty, as a righty, the ball's cutting away. Your delivery, and you're big. It's not a comfortable at bat. I think that. Well, I'm probably cutting out. Okay, sorry.
It's all right.
Am I cutting out?
We got you back.
I mean, Yankee Stadium's a tough ballpark. Fenway Park's a tough ballpark. What kind of adjustments did you make? Colorado, I mean, you're pitching in Colorado where the ball flies. So what kind of adjustments have you made? These are all three virtually real hitters' parks.
Colorado was the big one. I think, proving that I could pitch there was huge for me. I wasn't afraid of any ballpark after that. I felt like I don't care how short the fences are, like, my pitches will move, at sea level. So I always have a ton of confidence pitching at sea level, whether it's Yankee Stadium or Cincinnati or any of these places where there's a lot of home runs. I feel like, if my pitches have the good action, then I'm in control. So it's not really something that I worry about too much. I mean, I do think in Fenway, obviously there's a ton of space out in right field and right center. So if you can push some of the power hitters more that way, that's probably in your best interest than letting them pull the ball over the wall. But, I really didn't change my approach because of the short porch and Yankee, and I don't think I'll change it too much in Fenway, but it's always something that you do kind of think, if I am going to give up contact, I'd rather be in this area.
Yeah. I'm curious too, because, I was GM on the East Coast, Bobby's on the West Coast. Did you see much difference between pitching East Coast, just baseball general fan base, any of that stuff versus West Coast? Did you see much of that difference?
I mean, I think they're kind of in the two divisions that I played in. They're kind of similar in that, you have the Dodgers and the Giants in the West, and those are like kind of the, those are the juggernauts of the division. Big crowds, a lot of excitement around there, with their fan bases, and they're always going to have great teams. And tough places to play on the road, that sort of thing. And I think obviously in the American League East, it's, Yankees and Red Sox, not to take away anything from the other teams, but those are the teams that have like the big fan bases and maybe the tougher places to play. And so I feel like it was kind of similar in those ways. Other than that, baseball is baseball. I think, Colorado is a different animal in and of itself, and Arizona is a little bit in that category too, in my opinion, but those are just unique situations based on, other things like altitude.
Do you think in Colorado, you were consistent, but can they build a consistent pitching staff there? What do you think? It's hard.
It's hard. I mean, I had a bad year there too. I mean, I think, the name of the game there is kind of weathering it. I think your starters have to be extremely strong mentally to not care as much about their ERA and just keep on plugging and limit damage and always stay locked in and not get too discouraged by some of the ERA stuff. I think you can have a great year there and have a 4.6, and you got to be okay with that, and I think out of the bullpen, you can still have a great year there. You have to learn how to like kind of adjust your pitches home and road. I had some great veterans when I got there, Matt Belisle and Rafi Betancourt, that helped me with that. And that's something I always talk about is it's definitely different. If you try to fight it, I think it can kind of backfire on you, but if you embrace that it's different and learn how to kind of manipulate it, I actually think you can have a home field advantage there. So, the team can win. I just think the hard thing is just getting enough pitching, not even 5 guys, not even 12 guys. You got to have like 15 good options there. And I think that's the hard part because a lot of guys shy away from signing there.
Yeah. When you're the visiting club, you go to the clubhouse scratching your head a lot. Sorry if my
you're still freezing up.
Internet.
It's all right.
Sorry, scratching your head a lot because the games get out of hand. Go ahead, Jim.
Why don't you try taking the video off? That might help a little bit. And that I'll ask the next question. But when you also one of your I thought some guys have a difficult part of going through Tommy John surgery. You went through that in Colorado. I'm curious how how you dealt with that mentally. Everyone kind of deals with that differently. There's a lot of guys who've had the surgery, but was it difficult for you when you had to go through that? I know it was a while ago, but
the timing was not that it's ever good, but the timing broke my heart because I had just become closer,
right,
like a week before that, and I was pitching some of the best baseball of my career. And so the timing of it, I knew it was gonna be a bad MRI, like I just knew it. I pitched with it torn for 4 games and tried to get through it, but I just knew that was it. So, the moment of kind of getting shut down really, really broke my heart. But I think, I knew I was gonna come back. So I was able to kind of just like get into my zone there and work on my body and work on my mentality and try to come back better when I came back. And, I was really fortunate to be with unbelievable rehab coordinator in Colorado, Scotty Murayama, who was with me every step of the way. And, it was kind of a silver lining. Like my wife was pregnant with our first at the same time. So we were able to spend a lot of time together that summer in Colorado. And, it's never ideal to get a major surgery like that, but I feel like we made the most of it for sure.
Yeah, I was just curious, when you go to New York, you've got all those retired numbers, scattered all over in the history of the franchise, and you select to wear number 0. What was your thinking?
Yeah, I wore 0 growing up, and I wore it, with the Rockies. So when I went to the Yankees, it's not like there's a lot of really good options. I wanted to remain my number. I knew that there was a chance they wouldn't give it to me. The day that I went in to kind of take some headshots and stuff, I talked with the clubhouse guy, Robbie Kukuza, and, he kind of was a little bit funny about it. He was like, are you sure you want to go down this path and with number 0? And I was like, yeah, I mean, look, if you guys don't want to give it to me, that's okay. Like, I'll just move on. But, I do want to do it if it's okay with you guys. So I think they kicked it upstairs to whoever makes that final call, and they did say yeah. And and I'm happy that that happened, and I'll keep wearing it any place that lets me.
I didn't know you had it back in when you're in your youth age. I know you had it in Colorado, right? But and they didn't have any issue with it, right? Colorado when you changed, so it was just really with the Yankees. And are you going to be 0 in Boston?
Yeah, I'll be 0 in Boston. I mean, they definitely thought it was weird in Colorado when I asked for it, because like when I came over on waivers, I wore 37 in 2012, and then going into 13, I was like, hey, can I wear number 0? And they were like, well, sure. Like they thought it was weird. And I remember Tulowitzki telling me that if you're gonna wear a number like that, you can't be bad. So
Right.
I was like, all right, you're right. So luckily I was able to have a good year and stick around. But I mean, definitely crossed my mind, like, at that point I was still a lot younger and I worried a lot more about these things. So it's definitely crossed my mind that, people are going to not like this.
Right. That's kind of funny that you mentioned, because Tulo, I was going to get into a couple of these things, but I'll do it now. Tulo is one of those guys that, I mean, as you know, in Colorado, impactful guy, right? You've played with some guys, great teammates, great leaders. Are there like one or two that stand out to you, and why?
In Colorado, or just like in my career?
Just overall, yeah, in your career, just overall, yeah.
Well, I do think, starting with St. Louis, which is where I was first, I was only there briefly, but I was in the big leagues for the majority of 10, just because I was hurt for a while and I was around the other pitchers. So at that time, the guys that I really looked up to, and they're legends in my eyes still, is Wainwright and Chris Carpenter.
Yeah.
Those two guys, like, I wanted to be them. I felt like I was tall like them, like maybe I could learn their pitches, and honestly, I just wanted to be like them. So those guys were incredible. Their preparation, the way they led the staff, like the way that they had demanded accountability and excellence. I really loved watching those guys, and I took a lot of those lessons with me to Colorado. And then, when I was in Colorado, I thought things really started getting really good in 17 and 18. Like, Tulo was a great player and a good clubhouse guy too, but we weren't winning at that time. And then 17 and 18, I thought, Arenado was starting to come into his own. He leads a lot by example. He's such a hard worker, but I thought Carlos Gonzalez was unbelievable leader for our clubhouse too, because, he's bilingual, obviously been from Venezuela, but speaks incredible English. And he was kind of like that bridge between the Latin guys and the American guys. And, I just thought he did a great job making our clubhouse a lot of fun. And, I think that's key as you go on that journey towards the playoffs. It's a long year. You need to be together with it. So those some guys that just stand out to me. I will say on the Yankees, like Brett Gardner is definitely that guy. Brett Gardner and Judge too. Those guys are natural leaders. CC as well. But I was only there for less time, so you take a little bit from everybody, and I've been definitely lucky to play with some really good guys.
Right. I've heard that about Cargo too. That's not the first time that somebody said that about Cargo as a leader. Go ahead, Bobby.
No, I'm just happy that my internet's working again for now. But no, go ahead. I'm sorry that I have such a bad connection.
No, you're good. You're good. The Cargo leader. All right. So I asked you about the leadership on that. How about either best pitching coach or maybe the pitching coach that helped you the most along the way? I know a lot of times when I'd ask this question, guys would go, that first guy I had in pro ball was my bet, just because there was a big jump coming from amateur ball to pro ball. But how about in your case? Anyone stand out to you that maybe helped you the most along the way?
Yeah, I had a hard time when I was first in the minors, because all of our pitching coaches that I came up with were all like lefty changeup pitchers when they played, and I was like pitch to contact type guys, and I was like trying to strike people out and pitch off my breaking ball and try to throw high fastballs, and I had a hard time relating to some of them. And this was like during the time period still where you couldn't like get your own data, you couldn't like watch your own video as easily, so I couldn't really coach myself. I was really relying on others, and I struggled with that. Towards the end of my Cardinal tenure, Brent Strom was around, and he was the first guy that I met that kind of opened my eyes to, a little, because we were still in the cookie cutter era a little bit when I got drafted. And then I thought he opened my eyes a lot. It made me feel really empowered that I didn't have to do it that one way. I could lean into my strengths and kind of perfect my game that way. And so even though I didn't have him like at any individual stop, like I talked with him a lot in spring training, and he kind of spurred me on to Colorado. And when I got to Colorado, the coach there that helped me the most was Jimmy Wright. He was our bullpen coach, and he talked to us about the mental side. For me, like that was when I took the biggest leap, was just the mental side and kind of building. He would talk a lot about your focus and a focus muscle, and you can train that muscle. And, that was huge for me. That mental part of it, I thought took my game really far. And then I was kind of able to self-coach, the X's and O's from that point forward. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Larry Rothschild too at the Yankees. I really liked him. Yeah. 19, we clicked really well. Just kind of like was always a guy that if I had a tough game, he would find a way to give me like 4 reasons why to forget about it. And he was very even keeled, and and he definitely believed in me. So I appreciated that.
You were drafted by Tampa out of high school, right? And then you end up going to college. Was it no question, no doubt you're going to, because you're drafted down a little further down in the like 30th round. So I don't know if they were drafting you, going to follow you during this, because you had a really good high school career. So I'm kind of curious that decision, because it worked out for you. You were a first rounder, obviously a couple of years later.
Yeah. So like at that time, they never offered me a contract. They wanted me they wanted to follow me, potentially maybe push me towards junior college, maybe thinking one more year of development, that sort of thing. This was draft and follow era.
Right.
So, it was never really a conversation that ended up getting anywhere. We were pretty set that 3 years would do me well in school and give me my best chance to shoot, to be picked high after that. So, that was it. I mean, in high school, I just wasn't thought of in that way. I threw like 87, 89 maybe, and still threw a ton of breaking pitches, but the competition wasn't as great in my high school league. So I just wasn't looked at that way. I mean, I was just really happy I got drafted. Like that made me feel legit, drafted at all. Didn't care what round. It made me feel really good and gave me confidence, going into school.
That's a good one. All right. And the last one I'm not going to go back to your college days, but because you were the second highest draftee out of Northeastern, right? Carlos Pena was number 1. You played in the Cape. You got any good Cape Cod stories? Any like lobster roll sandwiches that you ate, local play? Give us a feel of what it was like, and anything you can think of that stands out about your Cape Cod league experience.
Well, I mean, the Cape was like a dream also. Like that's probably the most fun I ever had playing baseball. Just getting into that league, I was a temp initially, and ended up pitching well. And Steve Englert, who was with Boston College, kept me around. And I'm really grateful for that. And I got to just go on the ride of my life that summer. I pitched really well, got myself, noticed. But I also got to play with some great players. The big teammate that I had was Tim Lincecum, right. Who was just sublime, at that time. I was so on the Tim Lincecum bandwagon. He's a legend to me. He was incredible. He was striking everybody out. When we would go to parties, other players were like, who is that kid? I got to talk to that kid. He was just incredible. And I knew he was going to be in the big leagues soon with the impact. I remember Cleveland had the draft rights to him, and Cleveland scout was like, what do you think? And I was like, what do I think? I think like put him on the team,
Pitch him in the big leagues now. Right.
Yeah. So like, that's how I felt about him. But just watching him play, I mean, it was incredible. He was the freak, and that was like an early glimpse of it. I felt like I knew something that other people didn't. And, that's the biggest thing that stands out, was just getting to see him at that time and be a small part of that journey. And, we ended up playing against each other in the big leagues, but it was just very, 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 awesome summer.
Bobby, you've drafted Lincecum, Bobby. So come on, give us a Lincecum story right now.
Well, no, I mean, he came through the system quickly. I mean, you're right. I mean, he didn't take long to get there, and then he got there. He had wasn't long before he was winning back-to-back Cy Youngs, right? I mean, and then after that, three World Series. So, Timmy was a freak in so many ways. I mean, he's a product of a father that, helped him from a young age to create a very unique delivery. I mean, you have a very unique delivery. I mean, in many ways, you go back almost as far as Timmy does with you're dropping the hand down low and then coming over the top with it or to the side in your case. But I mean, Timmy for us was the franchise. He really set us on the path to what we accomplished in winning 3 out of 5 times, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, what a great athlete, and to do what he did is going to be hard to repeat. But wish he could have done it for longer, though.
Yeah, me too.
I'll tell you one quick thing on that, and I've told Bobby this story, Adam, but I'll tell you this. So I was with the Orioles at that point. I left the Mets with the Orioles, and we have the 8th pick that year in the draft. And it was down to him and a high school hitter out of New Jersey. And our scouting director came and said, I've had these conversations with the scouting director too, but he said, we're concerned about the medical with Tim Lincecum, that he's not going to be able to stay healthy. And I remember me and Mike Flanagan's former major league pitcher, and we were co-GMs. We're like, this guy's going to be in the big leagues like this year or next year. Like, okay, if he gets hurt, it might be a couple years from now. And they're like, no, he's gonna break down. He's gonna break down. Those are one of those stories in the draft room that stand out. You're like, man, and the high school kid never got out of AA, by the way, from New Jersey. So it's like, and I don't know if that even came into your mind with the delivery aspect, but scouts get into that kind of granular stuff. You can talk yourself out of good decisions.
Yeah, at that time, there was a lot of analysis going on of deliveries, and I don't know that everything was fully understood. I feel like watching him pitch, it always felt to me like, the arm is kind of along for the ride here. Like, I don't know that he's as risky as people think. Also, he was just so exciting. Like, I felt like he was a sure thing to be great, whereas some other guys, they still have a lot of development to go, Anyway, that was a really strong pitching draft. Like, there was Scherzer and Kershaw and, I think, Brandon Morrow and a lot of guys that were picked like pretty high that year. So there was probably some tough decisions, I would imagine. I can recall, I had a meeting with like a cross checker with the Royals who had the number 1 pick. And I remember them telling me, well, you're not in the running for the number 1 pick. Like, we're looking at you for our 2nd pick. But do you have anything on any of these guys that are looking at the top of the draft? And I was like, Tim Lincecum, I know that he's not projected number 1, but this guy, I'm telling you. And I think they took Hochevar, and he had a nice career too. But I just think it was just interesting because nobody knew what to do with him. He was so unique at the time.
It's a good story. You have some evaluating skills when your career's over, man. Get into the front offices. We appreciate it. Adam, thank you. It's always good to see you. Good luck with the new digs there with the Red Sox. We're excited to watch you. I know it's going to go well. I know Bobby feels the same way about you. So thanks for giving us some time today.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Adam.
Adam Ottavino.